And joining us today is our special guest, Joe Allen, who has a new book out called Dark Aeon. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Allison, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about, I know your work is in AI and transhumanism, but tell us a little bit about this book and what you're trying to get across.
I think the deepest message is that the orientation of our civilization in America and the West, but also across the world, South Asia, Southeast Asia, China, uh, every developed nation is grappling with technology. What does it mean for the civilization? What does it mean for the people in the civilization? And one of more striking notions is that the technology itself has its own inherent value. And in some views, the most extreme transhumanist views or post-humanist views, the idea is that the technology is rapidly becoming superior to human beings and should be deferred to. So that reflects everything from artificial intelligence on down to robotics, brain computer interfaces to connect the human mind to that artificial intelligence, and of course, genetic engineering to improve the biological system underneath, which is, of course, accelerated and in many ways intimately linked to developments in artificial intelligence.
Well, I think a lot of people out there are wondering, are they going to have a job in 5 years? And if so, what is the job market going to look like?
You know, that's a major issue and one that so there's a number of ways to address that. One is just simply to try to make a prediction. Well, how fast will the technology progress? How many jobs will be lost? What sorts of jobs will be lost? Those projections are all over the map, and I have my own sense. But it's very, very difficult to nail down any prediction like that. And if you look at the history of such predictions, it's almost just a crapshoot as to which one would win out. But just to give a brief sense of where I stand on that, I think it's pretty clear that white collar jobs are in many ways more threatened than blue collar jobs in the very near future. Large language models have really put this on the map, but various advanced algorithms have replaced human thinking in all sorts of sectors of society. Finance may be one of the most important, but also in politics, the ability to kind of read the crowd, so to speak, has really fallen onto algorithmic methods and artificial intelligence, algorithms and artificial intelligence kind of bleeding into one another. So I go into that a bit in the book, but the main focus of the book is the belief system underlying both transhumanism at the extreme, but also a lot of this kind of generic futurist predictions and the intentions of the companies producing these technologies. And I call it the greater replacement, and it is undoubtedly an agenda being pushed forward for a number of reasons. The two major reasons: the first, just the corporate rationale. If you can save money, you will. If you can have a more excellent employee, you will. Or maybe you'll sacrifice the excellence for the efficiency and the savings on wages. So there's every incentive to replace human beings with automation in the corporate world. And when it turns out to be excellent, more excellent than humans, then there is the added competitive incentive. The other is more governmental, but that also applies to corporations, schools, even religious systems. People, the more you offload cognition to the machine, or if you can replace humans outright, you don't have the problem of defiance. You don't have the problem of upheaval and rebellion. And I think that is a more latent motivation, but it also comes up. People talk about the greater replacement, so to speak, of the intellectual class, or many of them, with artificial intelligence. And then, as I say, what I think is going to be more of a long-term trend, the working class with robots. Although the situation we face right now immediately is that as AI is replacing more and more white collar jobs, immigrants replace the blue collar labor in America. So you kind of find yourself stuck between a very high tech rock and a low tech hard place.
It's a really confusing situation. And I was reading one article and it suggested that perhaps soft skills that involve interpersonal relationships may somehow be able to be saved, or jobs that are related to that area may thrive in this environment.
Yeah, that's basically humans as babysitters and window dressing. So if a doctor no longer is really that responsible for the correct diagnosis of the patient and the correct prescription of a therapy, and much more just a communicator of the machine. And this is a conversation that's happening across the board: lawyers, ethicists, doctors themselves. Then basically, yeah, they're a babysitter for the machine. They're a babysitter for the patient. Sort of like when you go to the self-checkout kiosk, and what used to be a clerk basically is babysitting the machine and trying to babysit the humans who can't figure it out. So yeah, and that goes again. Teachers, much the same. Caregivers, just general caregivers, much the same. Any professional position that requires intellectual work that is being turned over to a machine and the human is just basically a liaison. I think it's pretty clear that the central value in that system becomes very quickly the machine, and the human being then becomes, ironically, a replaceable cog.
Who are the people that are behind this movement to make sure that AI is at the forefront of society?
It would be great. People oftentimes point to the World Economic Forum, and it's a very, very important way to read to get a sense of the momentum and get a sense of the players. It would be great if it was just one group that you could identify, but it's distributed so broadly across the system, not just America, but across the planet, that it really, I would say, the devil inside is the primary goal, primary driver. But so specifically speaking, though, the World Economic Forum, you really do get a good sense of what the various corporations and governments who partner with the World Economic Forum, which is basically every major corporation and basically every dominant governmental system and their agents in the world. It's more meaningful to talk about who's not involved with the World Economic Forum than who is. But it's just really a lot of rhetoric. It's basically a vehicle for propaganda. The people who are really behind it range from finance, of course, to the tech corporations creating these machines, whether it be OpenAI in partnership with Microsoft, which is really the vehicle for ChatGPT, Google with Lambda or Bard. They have their own sphere of influence. Amazon has its sphere of influence, on and on and on, and over to Tencent, Baidu, Huawei, Alibaba in China, various corporations in Israel, India, Europe, and then even corporations in Africa, South America. It's everywhere, right? I think of it sort of like bioluminescent mushrooms growing out of a mycelia across the planet. It's not that if you took out one mushroom, the mycelia is still there. It's still going to grow somewhere else. So it's a problem, I think, that's going to be perennial. It's not an unsolvable problem, but it's also not a problem that I think is going to be solved by a one-size-fits-all program. I think that different communities are going to respond differently.
Okay, so different communities are going to respond differently. What are some of those suggestions or ideas?
I think for myself, the real important thing is as this global experiment unfolds, and it is very much an experiment, there is no certitude as to what will happen as you deploy these technologies across the planet. As this unfolds, it's going to be very important to have a control group and a lot of control groups. And we've already seen historically we know what happens when technologically advanced civilizations come into contact with and start to dominate other cultures. They either co-opt them, transform them completely, or destroy them. And we at least have those lessons behind us, and in some ways a moral justification for maintaining true organic human relationships, for maintaining the sorts of cultures that you can say no to a new technology. And more, that's going to be important. The superpower of saying no is going to be very important. The pandemic, I think, it taught a lot of really good lessons in that. And it also, unfortunately, showed us how many sacrifices will probably have to be made for those who do not want to be co-opted by the system, or even worse, actually, systems within systems, within systems, adjacent to systems. It's simply the future's coming fast. And if you want to preserve what is ancient, if you want to preserve what is valuable now, it will take an act of will to do so, collectively and personally. There are many naturalists and evolutionists who are actually very, very concerned about these technologies and don't want to live in a cyborg world or any approximation of it. But I really think that the spiritual orientation of Christianity, Judaism, even Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, on and on and on, whatever the faith is, all of them represent ancient structures that have brought human beings up to this point, and to discard them willy-nilly would be very, very unwise. You don't even have to be a believer to understand how it is these systems are what it took to get us this far, and discarding them would be as foolhardy as getting rid of, say, the Tasmanian tiger or the woolly mammoth.
Well, Joe, the book is Dark Aeon. Where can people get it, and where can people learn about your research?
You can get it anywhere books are sold. You can get it from the mouth of the beast. You can get it at Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. You can find links on my social media slave chain at JOEBOTXYZ, or my website, joebot.xyz. While many of your listeners will go through the computer, I must say that, I'm very happy that the hardbound paper in your hand, typos and all, not that many, just one or two. I hope that they will be able to really get a sense of the personalities and the systems behind the transformation that we're all a part of right now. And just real quick, it is a lengthy book, but I wrote it in a way where you could begin from page 1 and get to page 400 and take the entire ride, and one part builds on the other. But it is a book where I intentionally wrote it in a way that you could literally pick up any given chapter, start there, even finish there if that's all you really needed to take in. So I don't want potential readers to be too daunted by the length. It's something that can be easily digested very quickly and at your own pace and your own desire.
Well, it's certainly a fascinating subject, and one that we're all going through, whether we like it or not. So once again, Joe Allen, the book is Dark Aeon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you soon, hopefully.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.